Hello and welcome to the strategic analysis of the operational case study. So before we start, just going to give you a brief introduction into what this video is about. Essentially, it's going to go through the pre-scene as a whole, discussing various models that you can use in your analysis and in your recommendations in the exam. And in a sense, tie the whole thing together. So let's start. Now, first of all, the industry in the November OCS exam is the floricultural industry. And as I've mentioned here, perhaps this will be something that many of you will look at and worry. Now, the reason for this is, of course, it's an industry that we all know of. As such, as we've all been to the supermarket, we've all been to the florist, we've all been to weddings where there's been flowers, we've all bought flowers in the past, we've all received flowers in the past, but how many of us can actually say that we know how that flower gets into our hands? The structure of the industry is somewhat a mystery to many of us. So let's just have a little look at a bit about what the company is about. Well, we know the company obviously is called Rosa, and it's currently a successful company with strong margins operating in country J. So at this current point in time, the company is successful, but of course success this year does not translate to success next year, does not translate to success in 10 years time. So really what we need to look at is where the business wants to go, what they want to achieve in the future. And we do this by using what is known as the rational model. Now the rational model is a combination of various models from your CIMA syllabus that essentially analyze and list where the company is now, where they want to be in the future, and how they are going to get there. So we do this by first of all looking at where they want to go, where they are now, and how they are going to get there. How do you get from the now to the future? And as you can see, all these different models around the bubbles on the slide here, these are the kind of models we're going to look at as we progress through this strategic analysis. So the first thing we need to do is look at where we want to be. Where will the management of the company, where will the stakeholders of the company wish the company to be in the future? And so we do this by looking at the ethics of the organization, looking at the stakeholders of the organization, and the factors that are essential, that are necessary for them to achieve these goals. Now, first of all, we have mission statements here. So what is the organization? What is it about? Why do they exist? Now, we weren't actually given any information on this in the pre-scene. Obviously, we were told that it is a family-owned company. It began about 40 years ago from humble beginnings, and in the last decade became a limited liability company. And we can estimate that yes, they do want to sell flowers. They want to be a flower producing company that sells flowers to consumers, sells flowers to customers. But of course, that is obvious. If they didn't do that, they wouldn't have a business model. So what you may be asked in the exam, given that you haven't been given any information on a mission statement, is to help come up with a good mission statement. So what would a good mission statement involve? Now, Campbell here has listed out the four main elements, the four key elements for a mission statement, and those are the purpose. So what does the organization exist for? Who does it exist for? Well, currently we know that they exist to produce and sell flowers into country B, where they have a distribution network and they sell into wholesale. So how does the company compete? What range of areas, what range of businesses is it operating with? Well, we know that it sells roses, carnations, and chrysanthemums. So these are the businesses that it exists in. These are the 3 types of flowers that it exists to sell. So how does the business compete in this industry? Well, we know that they are an individual company that sells through a distribution network from the Arnold family's distribution network in country B to various wholesalers. Now, what's interesting about this is that this is perhaps slightly different from the industry standard. Now, the industry standard involves quite a lot of correlated conglomerates who own various sellers, they own various distribution networks, and they own various retailers, and it's all just consolidated into one movement. So arguably the difficulty for Flor Rosa is that they are competing with competitors who perhaps own businesses at every stage in the product cycle. So next we move on to values. So this is what the organization stands for. Now, we know when it was first set up, it was set up as a hobby almost. So it perhaps initially existed to provide supplemental income to the family's cattle farm before they saw the viability of the business as a whole. What we can read into this, however, is that if it is a family-owned business where the success of the business is almost linked to the success of the family, and also from the organizational structure we saw where the sister of the owner was head of quality control because of her fastidious nature and her love of flowers and her love of getting flowers right, or growing the perfect flowers, that we can argue that they do stand for quality. Now, value for money we don't necessarily know because we haven't been given any additional information yet about the prices. So we don't know how much they are charging compared to how much competitors are charging, or how much they are charging to sell on to wholesale, and then we don't have any information on how much the wholesalers then sell it for and how much the consumers then purchase it for. And finally, we have the policies and the values of the company. So something that all employees will be seen to adhere to. Now, if you've been into a major company's office building before, I'm sure many of you in fact work in major international organizations. A lot of the time when you walk into the office, they have a mission statement or a value statement in the reception area. So everyone who's going into the building starts their day with a jolt of why we are here, what we are doing this for. And particularly for a labour-intensive industry such as this, it would be good to install good values upon their employees, so that their employees, the people out in the fields picking the flowers, are motivated. They feel that they are part of a family. They feel they are part of something. And ultimately, everyone wants to feel like they belong to something, and that could really help both from attracting the right employees and also the productivity of the employees and the likelihood that the employees will stay for a significant amount of time. So in the exam, you might be asked to compile these different sections together, these different theorems together, and come up with a mission statement, which could be something along the lines of: we want to be the leading exporter of high quality flowers so that we can help our community. And that would be an example of a mission statement that fulfilled all 4 of those objectives. The people know what they're doing, the people know that they are valued, they know that they are helping different stakeholders in the community, and they know what they are who they are providing for. So that's mission statements. Let's take a look at objectives and performance measurements. Now, the important thing about this is that the company obviously is quite a family industry. you can gather that there's sort of a culture of this is the way it's always been done, we're happy how we are, this is just how we will continue. But of course, for a business looking to grow, it needs to set itself quantifiable objectives that it tries to meet. So rather than just say we're happy being this medium level producer, they set themselves an objective perhaps of being one of the top producers, and then they set targets based on that objective of how they are going to meet that. Now, we haven't been given any real specific targets in the case study. We can gather from Rommel, the son who went and studied in college, that he sees the potential of the business. And he wants to grow the business, sees the opportunity to develop the business and to expand, and could be a very important driving force behind that in the future. And then, of course, performance measurement. Now, performance measurement is essentially once you've got your objectives and you've got all your targets, you then measure how well you are doing based on those. So it's all right to say, in 10 years' time, we plan to be X, Y, Z, but how do we know if we're on track to meet that? How do we know if we need to improve to make sure we meet those objectives? Now, currently they have an organizational structure. They have one person at the top and they have a specific head of each department that then reports into that person at the top. Now, at the moment, they perhaps wouldn't need to change their structure into a more divisional structure because they only operate out of one country and they mainly only sell into one country. But that possibly could tie in to the fact that it will be easy to measure the effectiveness of each department. So, for example, if it turns out that a lot of costs are being accumulated in the transport area in relation to how much extra value the transport area is, or transport manager is providing to the business, then that will be an identifiable flaw in the company's structure, and therefore it will be easier to improve on that. For example, if they want to be the leading exporter but they do not have enough means of transport, for example, then that will be a clear target to improve on and will show that there is no real value being added in that section, in that department. And of course, the balance scorecard, which you may have recently studied in your P1 studies, is in a sense, the idea that more than just the financial performance is necessary to see if the business is growing. There are lots of other things such as the satisfaction of your employees, the growth of public opinion, your relationship with your suppliers, and also the general effectiveness of your operations. So we haven't really been given any information. There's little evidence of non-financial performance measurements in the case at the moment. But as the finance officer that you have been, there's the role that you are being given within the exam, there is scope for your role to be perhaps analysing and making recommendations based on this, based on the information in the case study. So now move on to critical success factors. So these are, as the name suggests, these are particular factors that are important to your business, and they are essential if your business wishes to continue to be successful, if they wish to continue to grow. Now, we weren't given any particular information on this in the pre-scene, but we can assess the critical success factors based on the information we were given. We can perhaps infer various different critical success factors from the nature of the industry, from the way that they operate, from the business model that they operate. So let's take a look at some of the critical success factors that I have brought up here. So, excellent quality. Now this is key for flowers because they only have a very short shelf life, and as a result they have to be sold very quickly. And also, if you think about the very nature of floriculture and flowers, is it's a very aesthetic based industry. Now people aren't going to buy flowers that are ugly, because the whole point of flowers is it's supposed to be something that brightens a room. It's a beautiful bouquet of flowers for your spouse on Valentine's Day, things like that. So you need good quality flowers to be successful, because people will not buy poor quality flowers, and if consumers are not buying the poor quality flowers, then the retailers are not going to be buying flowers from you. Now the next one I've put here is good customer service. Now there wasn't really any mention of customers in the case study, other than that they deal through the Arnold family, through various distribution networks in country B, out to wholesalers. However, dealing in such an industry where, as I've mentioned, the shelf life of the flowers can be quite short, you need to ensure that you are providing good quality produce to your customers. And if you don't, if for example, for whatever reason, the flowers spoil on transport, you need to bear the brunt of that and refund the customer, or provide them with a discount next time, or extend their credit line so that you can replace the flowers before they have to pay. And particularly as an exporting business, you have to perhaps be quite accommodating to the people that are buying your flowers, because they may feel that they are taking a risk by bringing in these flowers abroad, from abroad. For example, companies in country B may potentially face issues with groups within country B feeling that companies should stop importing from abroad, and that they're taking away jobs within country B. So it's important to maintain good relationships with buyers, and good customer service is part of that. And another factor, which to an extent stems from the other two, is effective delivery. Now we know that the flowers can only last for, some of them only last for up to 2 weeks once they have been picked, which means they have to be picked, packaged, delivered to the airport or harbour if they're going by boat, and they have to be kept chilled, because the flowers spoil more quickly at higher temperatures, which means that the transport logistics have to include the ability to keep the flowers cool, which may require additional equipment such as freezing equipment and chilling equipment that must also be transportable with the flowers. And that is, in a sense, almost more important, because that directly links to the above two critical success factors. And finally, we have efficient production. So this is all to do with the operations of actually planting the flowers, growing the flowers, nurturing the flowers, and picking the flowers. Now this is important for two reasons. One, that obviously the flowers have to be picked at just the right time in order to have the best possible plant to transport, and also due to the fluctuations in demand and the demands at certain times, the plants need to be grown and nurtured at the right time so that they're ready at the right time. As we've already discussed in the pre-scene, things like Valentine's Day, if your flowers are not due to flower at the right time, then steps will have to be taken to speed up or slow down the process of growing the flowers so that they are ready to flower just at the time that you need to sell them.